In modern Asian American families, stories of familial love and generational conflict often hide heartbreaking tragedies. The two shocking cases we examine today both originated from seemingly ordinary families, where parental love and expectations became crushing burdens on their children's shoulders. Around 10:30 p.m. on March 30th, 2018, the tranquility of a gated community in Orange County, California was suddenly shattered. Piercing screams tore through the quiet night air, waking residents from their sleep. People rushed outside to see what was happening. The scene before them was horrifying. Peng Yihong, a 30-year-old resident, stood on the lawn with his face contorted in rage, clutching a sharp knife. He was screaming like a wild animal, while drops of fresh blood from the blade fell to the ground, creating terrifying red streaks. In panic, residents immediately contacted police. Fortunately, the police station was nearby, and officers arrived at the scene within a minute. Seeing the police, Yihong attempted to steal a car to escape, injuring a neighbor in his frantic state. However, the officers reacted quickly, managing to control the situation and arrest the suspect. When police burst into the Peng family apartment, they discovered two Chinese-American parents lying unconscious in pools of blood, their bodies covered with deep wounds that continued bleeding. These were Yihong's biological parents. Ambulances were called immediately to rush the two victims to the hospital in critical condition. Tragically, Shen Weiping, the mother, did not survive due to her severe injuries. Peng Guojun, the father, along with the injured neighbor after intense surgery, ultimately escaped death and gradually recovered. As news spread, it sent shockwaves through a community known for its high security. But what made this incident even more sensational was that it shot straight to the front pages of esports publications worldwide. The reason was that the perpetrator, Yihong, was none other than the older brother of North American esports superstar Doublelift, Peng Yiliang. On the 18th, with immeasurable pain, Yiliang posted a brief but emotional statement on Twitter, confirming the family tragedy he was facing. What made everyone even more shocked was that neighbors remembered Yihong as a gentle, modest man who was always polite to everyone around him. No one could imagine that behind that peaceful facade lay a storm capable of destroying his entire family. In the early days, authorities maintained complete silence about the motive, creating countless questions in the public's mind. However, if one patiently examined the upbringing of the two Peng brothers, they would gradually discover the pieces that explain this tragedy. The story begins in Shanghai, where the couple Guojun and Weiping met and decided to build their future together. After graduating from university, they decided to set foot in California with aspirations of creating a better life in Orange County. During those difficult early years, they worked tirelessly, saving to gradually build their foundation. Their persistence was eventually rewarded. They became owners of valuable real estate and officially joined the affluent middle class. Notably, the couple applied an extremely strict and pressure-filled educational method to their children. They believed that only relentless effort could change one's destiny and that the formula for success could be replicated for their children. Therefore, their three sons all had to live under an iron discipline. Mother Weiping was the perfect embodiment of the typical Asian tiger mom. Weiping's educational philosophy could be summarized in three principles. Academic achievement was the absolute priority. All social relationships must be strictly controlled, and entertainment was completely forbidden. For her, any activity that didn't directly contribute to studying was considered a waste of time and harmful. This lifestyle created a constantly suffocating atmosphere of tension in the house. Each family member seemed to carry a sacred mission on their shoulders, to succeed at any cost. However, what Guojun and Weiping didn't anticipate was that being born on American soil, their three children carried a completely different cultural identity. Apart from knowing a few broken sentences in Shanghainese that their parents taught them, they were almost completely disconnected from Chinese culture and traditions. Eldest son Yihong, born in 1987, was the embodiment of the obedient child. From childhood, Yihong absolutely followed every instruction from the family, from studying to daily life. In contrast, Yiliang, the child born in 1993, had the opposite personality. As he grew up, this boy chose to directly confront the rigid rules his parents imposed. All of Yiliang's decisions stemmed from personal preference. He had no intention of compromising or giving in. Actually, even Yihong, the obedient eldest son, didn't truly agree with his parents' harsh educational methods. His constant compliance with all rules stemmed from deep love for his family and a desire to bring peace of mind to his parents. Moreover, as the eldest son, Yihong had taken on the role of a protective shield, standing between his parents' pressure storms and his younger brother. Thanks to this silent protection, Yiliang was able to grow up experiencing less of the weight of family expectations. When Yiliang was 11 years old, while he was studying magic tricks one day, he found his older brother playing a game on the computer, World of Warcraft, which was globally popular at the time. His brother let him play around, and at that moment, the great door to esports in Yiliang's life was opened. Over time, Yiliang's gaming abilities continued to develop and improve, eventually earning his brother's admiration. He thought that if his younger brother was a genius, he shouldn't be buried. Therefore, the eldest brother used money earned from part-time work during breaks to buy his younger brother a new computer. 2009 marked an important turning point in Yiliang's life when the 16-year-old first encountered League of Legends, a newly launched game in North America. This wasn't just an ordinary video game, but a comprehensive arena that tested players' intellectual abilities, strategic thinking, and sophisticated operational skills. As if destiny had arranged it, Yiliang displayed astonishing natural talent in this field. With his childhood passion for magic, Yiliang chose Doublelift, the name of a classic magic trick involving making objects disappear and reappear, as his battle name in the virtual world. In a short time, Yiliang had climbed to the top of the rankings and become a name respected by professional gamers. However, alongside his brilliant victories in the virtual world, a silent but fierce war was taking place within his own family. When the children entered their teenage years, the Pengs required their children's school grades to always reach A level. If after completing homework there was still free time, the children had to find part-time jobs to earn money. The day they discovered Yiliang's gaming passion could be compared to a tsunami hitting the family. In his parents' eyes, video games were no different from a harmful spiritual drug, capable of eroding willpower and destroying a person's future. They viewed gaming passion as a sign of moral decay and laziness. Therefore, they banned Yiliang from touching the computer. From then on, Yiliang had to maintain excellent academic performance while also working part-time to earn money. Throughout his 3 years of high school, Yiliang spent his after-school time working part-time for a total of 2.5 years, with an average intensity of 15 hours per week. However, amid this packed schedule, he still found ways to secretly pursue his gaming passion. This secrecy couldn't be hidden forever. Gaming conflicts created a persistently tense atmosphere in the family, causing the relationship between Yiliang and his parents to crack deeper and deeper. Nevertheless, in 2011, Yiliang received an invitation to join the professional esports circuit. That year, he secretly joined 2 teams in succession. Just a few months later, as a core team member, he and his teammates excellently earned the right to participate in the first League of Legends Global Championship in history. This wasn't just an ordinary tournament, but an arena for the highest level players from around the world in esports. This opportunity made Yiliang's heart burn with excitement and anticipation. However, the finals venue was set in Jönköping, Sweden. This put Yiliang in a dilemma, because under US law, all citizens under 18 who want to leave the country must have parental consent signatures. Yiliang was underage and in a tense relationship with his parents, so he didn't dare bring up this matter. When he learned of his brother's difficult situation, Yihong decided to step in and persuade their parents. But the result was not only failing to get the signature, but both brothers also had to endure a harsh scolding. In their parents' eyes, their son secretly signing a contract with an esports team was already unforgivable, and now wanting to go abroad to participate in what they considered children's games was simply an absurd idea. In their thinking, Yiliang was still just an inexperienced boy, not mature enough to distinguish right from wrong. This competition, in their view, was certainly an elaborate scam, possibly even involving dangerous criminal organizations like human organ trafficking. With such concerns, refusing to sign was completely understandable from the parents' perspective. But Yihong, with his deep love and understanding of his brother, recognized this as an opportunity Yiliang might never have again. In the decisive moment, the older brother joined Yiliang in a hunger strike to protest their parents' decision. This hunger strike created enormous psychological pressure on the Peng couple. As the competition time approached, they finally had to give in and sign their consent. Not stopping there, Yihong also took out all his savings to fund his brother's expedition to the distant country. As if fate had arranged it, Yiliang didn't disappoint his older brother. He fought with all his might and achieved 4th place in the global finals. This was not only a career-defining turning point, but also brought home $1,400 in prize money, an amount that for a teenager like Yiliang was truly a fortune. However, hopes that this success would change his parents' perspective quickly shattered. Instead of congratulations and pride, they poured another bucket of cold water cruelly over their son's head. Their warning was thought-provoking. This time, you were lucky nothing happened, but that doesn't guarantee future times. They still hoped Yiliang would abandon his gaming illusions to seek a truly respectable job according to social standards. A feeling of helplessness overwhelmed Yiliang when he realized that in his parents' view, esports carried an unforgivable sin. Even though their son had proven his ability and even started earning money from his passion, they steadfastly refused to acknowledge the value of this path. Instead, they constantly held up Yihong as the perfect model for comparison. In their eyes, Yihong was the embodiment of true success. Raised from childhood with the family's strict educational methods, he had excellently maintained top academic performance and smoothly earned admission to a prestigious university to study pharmacy. Yihong also held a pharmacy technician license and could even work part-time at local pharmacies while studying to earn money. After graduation, he would have a stable position at a hospital pharmacy. According to the Peng parents, this was the definition of a respectable career. Compared to video games, which they considered frivolous, Yihong's path was truly worth pursuing. They earnestly hoped Yiliang would come to his senses and follow his brother's example, making life choices that met family expectations. July 2011 witnessed another confrontation between Yiliang and his parents. The argument started over trivial daily matters, but as usual, it quickly shifted to the topic of gaming. The mother harshly scolded her son for being lazy and useless, demanding he stop wasting time with games and instead find a part-time job to earn money. Frustration welled up in Yiliang when he felt these accusations were completely unfair and unreasonable. At that time, he was simply between jobs, and more importantly, he had successfully been accepted to UC Irvine. This coming September, he would officially enter his freshman year. Gaming had not hindered or delayed any important plans in his life. But this justified defense was like a match to a powder keg. The mother flew into a rage, considering her son's explanation an unacceptable act of talking back. She gave her son a final choice: choose between gaming and family. Yiliang persisted in his position. The mother decisively kicked him out of the house and confiscated his phone. Yiliang left home in anger. Actually, Yiliang wasn't completely surprised by this situation. The threat, "you're out at 18, had become a familiar phrase over the years whenever conflicts arose. What he didn't expect was for it to become reality in such circumstances. Stepping onto the street empty-handed, Yiliang only carried a $600 laptop, an old bicycle, and a meager $50 in his account. During his first day's wandering, Yiliang had to rely on help from friends, turning couches into temporary beds, but his self-respect wouldn't allow him to live like that forever. In desperation, he decided to share his story with the community. An emotional post was published. "I am Doublelift, a high-ranked team member. Today, I became homeless." He recounted his situation, hoping people would provide some help. Many netizens expressed sympathy for his circumstances. He received thousands of dollars in donations, along with occasional support from his brother. As for tuition, Yiliang had to manage on his own through student loans. Though his heart was full of pain leaving his beloved home, Yiliang couldn't deny the strange feeling of liberation when escaping the invisible chains that had bound him for so many years. With determination not to become a wanderer on the streets, Yiliang devoted all his time to practicing gaming with almost insane intensity.
2
years later, Yiliang moved between multiple teams, achieved numerous championships, earned substantial prize money, and the name Doublelift had become a famous North American esports star. But amid the spotlight and cheers from thousands of fans, there was a painful void that nothing could fill. For 2 long years, Yiliang never once picked up the phone to call home. Every time he saw other colleagues with families flying from far away to cheer them on, Yiliang always tried to maintain a calm expression. But in those moments, his heart felt squeezed by silent sorrow. Years of struggling in the fiercely competitive world had taught Yiliang many valuable life lessons. As the anger and impetuousness of youth gradually subsided, he began to see what was once considered principled determination now seemed like thoughtless stubbornness. In a documentary, Yiliang shared heartfelt feelings about missing his family and his past stubbornness. After achieving success, he increasingly felt the precious value of family affection. He was a young man who hoped his parents could understand and respect his dreams. But more than that, he was a child who had left home long ago and yearned to return. After witnessing his brother crying on screen, Yihong felt every word echoing the thoughts in his own heart. Yihong understood better than anyone the feeling of constant compromise, carrying the weight of family expectations, living like a machine according to the mold his parents had drawn. Once again, with deep love for his brother, Yihong decided to play the role of bridge to heal the family. With patience and skill, he gradually persuaded his parents to open their hearts to welcome back their lost child. After 2 years of separation, the Peng family was finally able to sit together at the same dinner table. That moment was filled with hope. The story seemed to be heading toward a happy ending. The rebellious child had matured and returned, and the family would build a bright future together. But reality was harsher than they imagined. Despite all the evidence of success Yiliang had achieved, his parents still firmly believed that esports was just a frivolous game that couldn't become a long-term career. This became even more ironic when the 4G era had opened golden opportunities for the gaming industry. Yiliang not only earned money from competing, but also built a live-streaming empire with millions of passionate fans. His annual income had exceeded $500,000, a figure much larger than the entire family's combined income. But those numbers seemed meaningless before the older generation's stubbornness. This was clearly shown through one meaningful detail. In all recordings of Yiliang's family life, the mother's image appeared only once. It was a scene of mother and son sitting across from each other during a meal, but instead of being a warm time for conversation, it became an endless lecture session. The mother was like a machine producing old advice. Playing games is wrong. You should learn from your brother to find a stable job. Stay away from bad friends. Don't waste money uselessly. Meanwhile, Yihong had become a successful laboratory scientist. His life was a perfect contrast to his rebellious younger brother. His parents had bought a beautiful apartment in his name. He was living happily with his girlfriend, and they had begun planning their wedding. Everything was proceeding exactly according to the script his parents had written. Career advancement, lasting love, stable life. This was the perfect model they wanted Yiliang to follow. Compared to their second son, who never gave them peace of mind, this was the lifestyle they were satisfied with. But Yiliang didn't have time to worry about this too much, as he was then with a new team reaching the North American tournament finals for the first time. But the most serious incident in his life occurred. Yihong, who seemed to satisfy everyone, apparently fell into trouble with his parents and suddenly killed his mother. When this happened, it was less than 10 days before the tournament's final championship. Yiliang handled the aftermath and still appeared in the finals, and that spring, he lifted the championship trophy. That day, he didn't have much excitement. On one side was his brother who supported his dreams. On the other were parents who had worked hard half their lives. Championship trophies could continue to be won through effort, but having the most beloved people come to witness this honor in person could never be realized again. What exactly happened? In March 2018, before the incident occurred, Yihong's longtime live-in girlfriend suggested breaking up with him. People discovered that during this time he showed signs of mental confusion, made repeated errors at work, and was required to take unpaid leave to rest at home. This news hit the family like a psychological bomb. The parents, who had always been proud of this perfect son, panicked completely when they realized that workplace stability had been shaken. With parental protective instincts, they immediately went to Yihong's house, hoping to comfort and encourage their son through his difficulties. However, this meeting took place under the worst possible circumstances. Yihong's girlfriend was also present, making the atmosphere even more suffocating. Instead of bringing comfort as hoped, the parents' presence was like adding fuel to the fire, making Yihong even more frustrated and angry. The worst part was that in the conflict between Yihong and his girlfriend, the parents completely sided with the girl. This decision inadvertently put them in direct opposition to their son. Following habits deeply ingrained in their bones, they again applied their familiar communication method, lecturing and criticizing their children. The ironic thing was that Yihong had originally been the most harmonious child in the family. For many years, despite enduring harsh, even cruel scolding from his parents, he had never had the fierce, rebellious reactions like his brother Yiliang. He always swallowed it, accepted it, and complied. Yet this time, the most obedient child exploded unexpectedly and violently. But this explosion didn't come from his inability to endure anymore, but because something had happened to his mind. When the horrifying details of the case were gradually revealed, according to reports from the Orange County District Attorney's Office, on the very day the tragedy occurred, Yihong had exhibited alarmingly abnormal behavior at a gym near his home. Those bizarre actions had worried people enough to call the police. Local officers, after being reported to, had driven him home safely. Ironically, Yihong's parents had no knowledge of this incident. They still believed that all their son's strange behavior stemmed from the pain of the breakup. In this ignorance, they continued trying to communicate with Yihong according to their old methods. And precisely while the parents were trying to persuade their son, Yihong's mental illness relapsed horrifically. In later statements to his defense attorney, Yihong revealed the terrifying hallucinations that controlled his actions. He believed his mother would destroy the world, and she was in the process of killing his girlfriend. In the moment when these insane delusions completely dominated his mind, Yihong lost complete control of himself and committed irreversible actions. At the police station, he remained frantic, screaming loudly. Experienced officers at the scene immediately recognized they were dealing with someone with serious mental health problems. Yihong's behavior and speech were completely unlike a typical criminal. Their first suspicion pointed to the possibility he had used stimulants or synthetic drugs affecting the nervous system. However, after multiple meticulous blood tests, all results were negative. Faced with this scientific evidence, police could only hypothesize that Yihong had experienced an extreme emotional breakdown, possibly due to excessive psychological pressure, leading to a temporary state of madness. After this tragedy, Yihong was continuously detained at Orange County Jail awaiting trial. The list of charges against him was frightening: premeditated murder, attempted murder, use of deadly weapons, and attempted carjacking. If all charges were proven, he could face up to 44 years in prison. However, strangely, for many years afterward, this case seemed to fall into an endless legal vortex. The court continuously postponed trial sessions, creating a confusing suspended state for all parties involved. The official explanation from the justice system clarified the reason. Yihong's mental condition showed abnormal signs serious enough to require in-depth and prolonged evaluation from top psychiatric experts. This wasn't a simple process, but required patience and meticulousness to ensure justice was served accurately. The lengthy legal journey spanned many years with countless examinations, evaluations, and re-evaluations from experts. Among 4 psychiatrists appointed to examine and conclude Yihong's condition, 3 of them agreed on a clear diagnosis. He suffered from schizophrenia. Finally, on November 21, 2024, after more than 6 years of waiting, Orange County Superior Court issued its final verdict. Yi Hong was declared not guilty by reason of insanity. The basis of this ruling rested on the fundamental legal principle that a person with schizophrenia, during an episode, had completely lost the ability to distinguish right from wrong and the capacity to understand their actions. Therefore, he could not be held criminally responsible for actions performed while in a pathological state. However, being declared not guilty didn't mean Yi Hong was completely free. Instead, he was transferred to a specialized psychiatric treatment facility where he would undergo long-term and complex treatment. Only when doctors confirmed his condition had stabilized and he could live safely in the community would Yi Hong be allowed to return to society. This means Yi Hong had been suffering from mental health issues for an unknown period. If not genetic family factors, then this problem likely stemmed from a long-term high-pressure environment that triggered his mental collapse. His parents, as first-generation immigrants to America, had risen from nothing to the middle class and early on bought homes for their sons, hoping to provide better educational and living environments for the next generation. But as an immigrant family, facing dual cultural pressures caused them to fall into anxiety, unconsciously transferring survival pressure to their children. This love, when it fell upon their children, became so heavy. The eldest and second sons, whether obedient or rebellious, were different survival strategies chosen under the family's high-pressure atmosphere. In fact, both achieved very good results, proving this family had established itself firmly in America. If that incident hadn't happened, it would be difficult to say whether the tiger father and tiger mother education of the Pengs was a failure. The variable here was Yi Hong's illness, and whether it was influenced by their educational approach. His sudden explosion caused all the accumulation of many years to flow away like water to the east. But regarding the specific and detailed lifestyle of the Peng family, we can only see the general picture from related documentaries and Yiliang's memories. Looking back at the past, Yiliang has chosen understanding and forgiveness. Through many years of competition, he became a legendary figure in North American esports. He announced his retirement in 2020 and now focuses on his live streaming career. He has now replaced his brother's role, always caring for his younger brother and family. On the afternoon of May 4th, 2012, a fisherman was leisurely walking along the beautiful Fengbin coastal road with his familiar fishing gear when he discovered a severely decomposed corpse among the rocks along the shoreline. The shock was so great that the fisherman had to hastily report it to the authorities. Immediately after receiving the report, police from the Hualien Police Bureau urgently arrived at the scene to conduct an investigation. The victim was a middle-aged woman, estimated to be between 50 and 60 years old, wearing long-sleeved clothing that covered her body. The clothing label read Lan Ling, and the outfit was decorated with glittering metallic details on the chest and cuffs. Due to being submerged in salt water for an extended period, decomposition had progressed severely. The entire body was bloated and deformed, with the face completely unrecognizable. Around the woman's neck, a steel wire had been wrapped so tightly that it left deep, clear marks. Not only that, but both the victim's hands and feet were bound with rope, although the rope around her feet had begun to loosen and showed signs of coming off due to the effects of seawater. These artificial marks told the whole story. Experienced police immediately determined that this was absolutely not a suicide or ordinary drowning accident. This was a premeditated murder, planned and executed ruthlessly. To confirm this hypothesis, a detailed autopsy was conducted by a professional forensic team. The final results confirmed what the investigators suspected. The victim had died from asphyxiation caused by the steel wire wrapped around her neck. After committing the crime, the perpetrator had dumped the body into the sea to destroy evidence. Based on the degree of decomposition, experts estimated the victim had been dead for at least a week before being discovered. Notably, there were no other significant wounds on the body, suggesting the victim may not have had time to resist strongly before being killed, or had been completely subdued. Additionally, police discovered in the victim's mouth a full set of dentures. Why was the victim murdered so brutally? The biggest challenge facing the investigation team was identifying the victim. When searching the victim's person, investigators found no identification documents whatsoever. The condition of the body after prolonged submersion in salt water had caused decomposition to progress to such a severe degree that not only was the face completely deformed, but fingerprints could not be collected. Making the situation even more complex, the victim's body had no tattoos or prominent distinctive scars. The victim wasn't even wearing any jewelry. Faced with these obstacles, the investigation team decided to change tactics. They focused on the clothing the victim was wearing. The police chief directed a comprehensive investigation, sending investigators to manufacturing plants and retail stores to trace the origin of the clothing with the Lan Ling label. At the same time, authorities organized a press conference, widely publishing detailed images of the clothing, hoping someone might recognize the outfit, having perhaps seen the victim wearing it, or even having information about where it was purchased. However, hope quickly faded when they realized this type of clothing was actually too common in the market. The simple design, ordinary materials, and even the decorative metallic details weren't special enough to create distinction. Although the media campaign attracted public attention and the police station received dozens of calls from enthusiastic citizens wanting to help, no information was truly valuable. Faced with successive dead ends, the investigation team was forced to seek new directions. They decided to focus on the second most important clue, the full set of dentures found in the victim's mouth. What made investigators feel optimistic was that this type of full dentures had become quite outdated by that time. Dental technology had advanced, and few people still used this old-fashioned type of dentures. This meant the search scope would be significantly narrowed, increasing the chances of success. Moreover, during the process of fitting dentures for patients, most dentists would keep records of patients' personal information. With strong confidence in this new direction of investigation, police launched a large-scale screening campaign. They started with all dental clinics in the Hualien area, then expanded the search scope to neighboring counties like Pingtung, Taitung, and Yilan. But the results once again left them deeply disappointed. After weeks of tireless work, after screening hundreds of medical records and interviewing dozens of dental experts, they still found no valuable leads. The case once again reached a complete dead end. The two main clues, clothing and dentures, had both led to disappointing dead ends. The situation began to seem hopeless when investigators realized they might be facing an unsolvable case. At this point, the investigation team decided to review the list of missing persons cases, but this time, they expanded the search scope to all of Taiwan. This nationwide screening required coordination from multiple police units across various counties and cities. Thousands of missing person files were collected, categorized, and analyzed, and finally, their efforts were rewarded. On an ordinary working day, a female police officer on the team hurriedly sought out the police chief in charge of the case with an eager and excited expression. She explained that during her meticulous review of missing person reports, she had discovered the case of a woman named Chen Yi that had unusual aspects. According to information the female officer provided, on May 2nd, just 2 days before the body was discovered, the local police station had received a missing person report from a man surnamed Tsai, who identified himself as Chen Yi's husband. He reported that his wife had not come home all night, and he was very worried about her safety. But one day after filing the report, this man called again saying he wanted to withdraw the missing person report, explaining that he had been mistaken. His wife had gone out with their daughter, not gone missing. Such situations were quite common, so at the time police didn't pay much attention. The strange result was that recently he had called to file another missing person report, saying his wife Chen Yi had not returned home for over a month, and now he was certain his wife was truly missing, not a misunderstanding. After hearing this story, the female officer felt it was very suspicious and immediately reported to the police chief. The police chief also found it very strange after hearing, so he immediately began investigating Chen Yi. On one hand, police searched for DNA from Chen Yi's relatives in the database, and on the other hand, they had Chen Yi's husband send her comb and toothpaste. Unfortunately, no DNA from Chen Yi could be collected from the comb and toothpaste. But in the DNA database, police found DNA from Chen Yi and Tsai's daughter, Tsai Qingjing. Police immediately had the forensics lab compare the deceased's DNA with Qingjing's. The results showed the DNA match between the two was 99%, meaning the victim found at Fengbin Beach was indeed Chen Yi. At this point, police immediately notified Tsai and investigated the victim's family situation in detail. According to investigations, the victim was currently retired, and her husband Tsai was a former military man, also now retired. In previous years, due to real estate investments, the couple had made a considerable amount of money and lived quite comfortably. He and Chen Yi had 2 children. Their younger son had died of illness some years earlier, leaving only a daughter, Qingjing. Due to their second child's death, Chen Yi and her husband loved Qingjing very much. According to Tsai, his and Chen Yi's life was very simple, and he couldn't think of any reason why his wife would be murdered. He only said that on the day Chen Yi went missing, she had mentioned going house hunting with their daughter and never returned. Their daughter was probably the last person to see his wife. Upon receiving this information, police immediately sought out Qingjing for questioning. The unexpected result was that Qingjing was also missing, mother and daughter both missing, and before they disappeared, the daughter had arranged to go out with her mother. Was this a coincidence? To find the answer, police investigated Qingjing's communication records. The records showed that immediately after Chen Yi went missing, Qingjing's cell phone tower location data showed she had been to Fengbin and was always with her boyfriend, Zheng Qicheng. On May 4th, Chen Yi's body was discovered at Fengbin Beach, and during those days, Qingjing and Qicheng had also been to Fengbin. Too much of a coincidence. In such coincidences, police sensed something abnormal. Police directly asked Tsai, "Do you suspect your daughter?" Tsai hesitated for a moment, then said, "Impossible. My daughter absolutely couldn't do such a thing." However, his eyes betrayed his true thoughts. After struggling for a while, he finally sighed and spoke his true feelings. Qingjing was the only daughter in the house. At age 19, she went alone to study in New Zealand, where she met Qicheng, a man 20 years older than her. The two quickly fell passionately in love. However, when Qingjing introduced Qicheng to her family, this relationship was opposed by almost everyone. The strongest reaction came from her mother, Chen Yi. Because of Qicheng, Chen Yi had argued with her daughter countless times, and from then their mother-daughter relationship grew increasingly worse. Could Qingjing really have killed her mother over this? In any case, they had to find Qingjing first. Through tracking Qingjing's call records, police finally found Qingjing and Qicheng at an internet cafe in North Taipei's East District. When they saw the police, both appeared very calm. Normal people would have panicked long ago when arrested, but Qicheng seemed very composed. When learning that Chen Yi had been murdered, Qicheng showed no surprise, only repeatedly saying, "I didn't kill her," and "I don't know." On the other side, Qingjing's behavior was also very strange. Learning her mother had been killed, her face remained calm, no sadness or surprise, as if she had known this beforehand. In Qingjing and Qicheng's luggage, police found Chen Yi's ID card and personal seal, plus several forged real estate transfer authorization documents. At that point, police were almost certain Qingjing was definitely connected to Chen Yi's death. The only thing that gave police headaches was that Qicheng and Qingjing consistently refused to confess details of the case. To make them talk, police placed photos from the crime scene when Chen Yi was discovered and autopsy photos in front of Qingjing. The result was that Qingjing only looked coldly once and said, "This person is so ugly, that's not my mother." Suddenly he remembered a local custom. If the dead aren't summoned back within 49 days, their soul will scatter. At that time, police didn't know the victim's identity as Chen Yi, so they had asked a temple priest at the city god temple to perform a soul-summoning ceremony for her. Seeing Qingjing still refused to confess, the police chief suddenly had a strange idea. He thought, if conventional methods aren't working, why not try something different? The police chief immediately sent someone to the city god temple to burn incense and pray for the city god to release Chen Yi's ghost. Though uncertain in his heart, he was out of options and could only try. Unexpectedly, about 40 minutes later, a strange foul smell suddenly appeared in the police station. Everyone wondered what that smell was. The police chief, smelling it, whispered, "She's here." At the same time, Qingjing's face in the interrogation room suddenly turned pale. The previous calmness, coldness, and composure had completely disappeared, replaced by horror and fear. She just screamed once, then collapsed and began sobbing uncontrollably. Police took this opportunity to ask her, "Do you know your mother has arrived?" At this point, Qingjing finally told the truth. According to Qingjing's testimony, at noon on May 1st, Qingjing called home from a public phone booth near her parents' house. Because she understood her parents' living habits well, she knew at this time her father had probably already gone to the hospital to volunteer. The reason for this phone call was to confirm whether her mother Chen Yi was home. After confirming her mother was home, Qingjing and her boyfriend Qi Cheng drove a rental car, bringing murder weapons to her parents' house. As soon as they entered, Qi Cheng used a stun gun to knock Chen Yi unconscious, then used duct tape to cover Chen Yi's mouth, and used steel wire to strangle her to death. After confirming Chen Yi was dead, Qi Cheng used rope to tie her hands and feet, then stuffed her into a suitcase prepared beforehand. Qingjing just stood calmly beside, watching her boyfriend act, showing no heartbreak or attempt to stop him. Qingjing's testimony wasn't just empty words. Police found actual evidence among her and Qi Cheng's belongings. In their backpack was a locker receipt. Police immediately went to check that locker. Inside, it was full of murder weapons, a stun gun, extra steel wire, 4 ropes, 3 rolls of duct tape, pliers, and even a detailed escape plan. When compared, the cut marks on the steel wire in the locker matched completely with the cut marks on the steel wire around the victim's neck. This proved they were the same wire. The rope in the locker was also identical to the rope tying Chen Yi's feet. According to further testimony, after killing Chen Yi, Qingjing and Qi Cheng stuffed the body into the suitcase and put it in the car trunk. They drove south looking for a suitable location to dispose of the body. When they reached a bridge in Fengbin, Qi Cheng stopped the car. He had Qingjing stay in the car while he alone carried the suitcase and threw it off the bridge. Police found the rental car they had used. Opening the trunk, the foul smell was still distinct. Blood tests in the trunk confirmed it was human blood, not seafood blood. With Qingjing's testimony combined with physical evidence, police proved that Chen Yi was indeed murdered by this couple. However, what police couldn't understand was why Qingjing could coldly watch her own mother be killed by her boyfriend and remain unmoved. Qingjing had originally been born into a happy family with good circumstances and harmonious parents. However, her younger brother was suddenly discovered to have leukemia, and this changed everything about their family life. At that time, because her brother was so young and so seriously ill, Chen Yi and her husband devoted most of their energy to their son, and Qingjing was sent to live with her maternal grandparents. Without her parents' attention, Qingjing felt very lonely. She was very jealous of children who grew up with their parents, jealous that they could act cute and laugh in their parents' arms. At age 7, Qingjing was brought back to her parents, by which time her brother had died from illness, and Qingjing again became the only daughter in the house, treasured by her parents. But with parents who always felt distant and a strict military father, Qingjing found it very difficult to recapture that warm family feeling. She always felt there was an invisible wall separating her from her parents, making it difficult for her to open her heart. At age 19, Qingjing was sent to study in New Zealand. In circumstances where her language skills weren't fluent and the environment was unfamiliar, she met Qi Cheng, a man also from Taiwan but 20 years older than her. Qi Cheng was a former soldier who had moved to New Zealand after leaving the military. The two happened to meet at a local church. Because Qingjing's English was weak, Qi Cheng volunteered to tutor her. Through contact over time, Qingjing gradually discovered that Qi Cheng was mature, reliable, and very tolerant. Most importantly, from Qi Cheng, she felt the warmth of paternal affection, something she had never received from her biological father. In her eyes, Qi Cheng was like an omnipotent god who could protect and shelter her. At that time, Qingjing had never loved anyone and thought this was love. She naively believed Qi Cheng was the best person to her, an existence more important than even her relatives. Therefore, the two fell passionately in love. Later, Qi Cheng and Qingjing returned to Taiwan together to meet Qingjing's parents. Seeing this man 20 years older than their daughter, Chen Yi and her husband naturally disagreed. Moreover, Chi Chung had no job, and when the two ran out of money, only Qingjing could go home to ask her parents for money. Perhaps out of love for her daughter, Chen Yi once gave them 300,000 new Taiwan dollars, about 10,000 US dollars, wanting the couple to do legitimate work. As a result, Chi Chung very quickly spent all this money. He took Qingjing to take many beautiful photos to make her happy, making Qingjing even more devoted to him. After spending the money, he shamelessly had Qingjing ask Chen Yi for money again. This time asking for 1 million new Taiwan dollars, about 33,000 US dollars. Seeing Chi Chung was so unreliable, Chen Yi naturally disagreed, instead repeatedly urging Qingjing and Chi Chung to break up quickly. Because of this, the mother-daughter relationship became very tense, and Qingjing stopped coming home, treating her parents like enemies. Unable to get money, Chi Chung and Qingjing's life became increasingly desperate. Sometimes they could only survive by stealing. Seeing life becoming increasingly desperate, Chi Chung began targeting Qingjing's family. He persuaded Qingjing to go home and ask her parents to transfer property. But no matter what they tried, Chen Yi and her husband firmly refused. Finally, Chi Chung came up with an evil plan. He told Qingjing, "As long as your mother dies, we can be together forever. I'll kill her and frame your father, take the money and run away." Faced with choosing between her parents, people she felt distant from, and Chi Chung, the man she idolized like a god, Qingjing didn't hesitate long. For her, in this world, only Chi Chung truly loved and protected her. After nearly 20 years together, he had become her entire life. She couldn't imagine life without him. Therefore, Qingjing resolutely made the fateful choice, a decision that pushed her onto a path of sin from which she could never return. At that time, she naively thought that as long as her mother died, everything would become beautiful. But she never expected that the man she loved would be the one to destroy her life. When the truth was revealed, Qingjing's father seemed to age decades overnight. He could have enjoyed his golden years with his wife, but now had to bear double pain. His wife killed by his daughter going to prison. He was both the victim's relative and the perpetrator's relative. Life imprisonment is too heavy for my child. Actually, everything was because of Chi Chung, not my daughter's fault. My child was originally very obedient, very well-behaved, he said with a pained voice. He was still ready to forgive if his daughter truly repented. But for Qingjing, the path back was gone. Though she could be forgiven if she repented, she had forever lost the love of her life. For her, if love was just a dream, she would rather remain forever immersed in that dream than face cruel reality. In May 2016, the Supreme Court issued the final verdict for this case. Qingjing was sentenced to life imprisonment, while Chi Chung's death sentence from the first and second trials was reduced to life imprisonment. Later, due to illness, Chi Chung died in prison on April 20th, 2022. This case has ended, but the pain this case brought will never end. In East Asian society, such family relationships are the true picture of how many families. They raise difficult questions to answer. Can parental love become a burden that crushes children's souls? And when does caring become toxic control? Thank you for following these two cases today. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss other thrilling cases. See you in the next videos.